talking about codependency, narcissism, and isolation, and how being forced into isolation or being forced to be alone can really kick up the codependency narcissistic dynamic. Don't forget to click subscribe and the notification bell. This way, every time I upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. So when we're dealing with a narcissist, we are in a relationship with someone who is absolutely can't hear us, right? So they have this empathy impairment. They have a difficult time, almost impossible time of seeing people fairly. They have their own reality. It's very difficult for them at all to understand the reality of other people and to empathize with other people. So narcissists are people who are absolutely addicted and feel and crave other people's adoration, other people's praise, other people's validation. They can't exist without having this mirror image of them being reflected back that has them believing that they are stronger, smarter, better, more significant, more unique, and more special than other people. They are people who never think that they're wrong. They're people who will never say they're sorry, but don't believe that they're sorry. There are some people out there that never say they're sorry and their ego is all wrapped up and it's hard for them to say they're sorry, but they might think that they're wrong. But when it comes to a narcissist, they don't think that they're wrong. They think that you're wrong. And so expecting them to hear you is not possible. They can be extremely vindictive and cruel when you don't go along with them. Now, codependents fit narcissistic relationships because codependents are sort of like the other side of the coin. Codependents also need validation too. And sometimes codependents who lack an identity, they lack a self, or they lack an understanding of who they are, they can be very drawn in and become addicted even to this narcissistic, larger-than-life personality. And it can be very difficult when we are forced into things like isolation. Right now, where the world is experiencing the coronavirus pandemic, and we've been asked to quarantine ourselves, or we've been asked to socially distance ourselves or separate ourselves from the rest of society. And a lot of people now are actually, deciding that I'm not going to talk to this one. I'm just going to do it by myself. And, if you're in that situation and you are away from people, it can very much kick up this sense of powerlessness, this sense that I don't know what's going to happen next, and loneliness. Now, codependents struggle with loneliness. So when you're a codependent, you have an issue with your identity. You don't know who you are. You don't know where your value comes from. You were taught as a child that maybe fawning, if you fawned after your mother's approval, if you fawned after your father's approval, if you pretended to be happy when you weren't, if you pretended to have no needs, right? If you pretended that you were happy when you weren't happy, if you said yes when you meant no. So if you were raised in a house where you felt abandoned by your family, then you can develop codependency. When you don't have healthy mirroring, right? You don't know that you are enough. You don't get the sense from the external world that you are enough. You don't know that you are. You have no idea where your value comes from. And you will look outside of your environment very much. Now, narcissists look outside of their environment, but they want their sense of self that they believe in, their skewed reality to be reflected back, and they feel entitled to have that reflected back. When we're codependent, we're looking outside of ourselves for validation also, but we don't know that we're worthy. If you're a codependent, you don't think that you're worthy. And what you do is then your behaviors get screwed up because it's your identity. You have an identity issue, which becomes a behavioral issue, right? So now you're acting codependently with people, taking care of people, rescuing people. You are looking for ways to take care of people. You enable people. You enmesh with people, right? You do all of these things, hoping that in doing these things, you will get a sense of self. And this action and this person will deem you worthy because of your deeds. And eventually they will give you the worth. Almost like that someone's going to knight you. The image that I get in my head is that you're waiting to be knighted by the queen, right? You're waiting for the queen to say, you are good enough, dear codependent, right? Now, when we have an identity issue, we have a behavioral issue, and then we have relationship issues. And that's why what happens is we attract narcissists who need someone who needs to be validated, right? And so what we do as a codependent is we end up acquiescing to someone with a narcissistic personality. It's your childhood programming. It's what you were taught to do. Remember, we learn most of what we learn about life before the age of 7. And if you grew up in a house where you were taught that you were not good enough, you don't believe that you are, and now you are someone out in the world that's looking for your sense of self and sense of validation and sense of I am enough in the doing for other people, and there is a narcissist in the midst that can smell that. They can absolutely smell it. A narcissist doesn't want somebody that's full of confidence. A narcissist doesn't want someone who's got strong boundaries. A narcissist wants someone who's struggling with their sense of identity. Now, codependents struggle when they don't really have someone to take care of. We really do. We want to take care of other people we want to rescue. We can get over a breakup. We can get past the end of a relationship. And once this person is, out of our lives, long enough, we will struggle. Well, there is a time where we're going to struggle with toxic loneliness. And that is why so many of us go right back into another relationship and very often attract the same type of a person again. And that's why we have to be careful, because in this situation with isolation, a lot of our loneliness might kick up. Now, if you've gone no contact with someone, it's very possible that a narcissist, right, will come back, because a narcissist is going to try to hoover you back in, even if it's just on Skype, even if it's in text messages, it's on social media. A narcissist that is not able to have his or her normal stream of supply at work or in some social situation. They're not going to bars, they're not hanging out, right? They're not going to social situations, right? So their stream of narcissistic supply might be waning right now. They won't bother you if they have another stream of narcissistic supply. But if you're dealing with somebody whose narcissistic supply is getting lowered, right? And your social interactions with people getting lowered. Here we go. We have this level of need happening, dysfunctional need, and it can be a dangerous situation. So what I'm basically saying is, as we move through this crisis, this coronavirus crisis, those of us who had these issues before with narcissism, with codependency, with attracting narcissists, that doesn't go away. That's still our issue. And when we're dealing with social isolation, when we're dealing with unpredictability, right, it can be very tempting when a narcissist sends us a text randomly or starts to love bomb us randomly. It could be very, very tempting, right, to answer the text or to answer the phone call or to check on them, right? And so we really have to be careful. What we have to do is we have to stay aware of why we went no contact in the first place, right? We have to separate what's going on outside of the world with what's going on inside of us. We have to be aware that as recovering codependents, right, we're going to be struggling with this loneliness. We're going to be struggling with, I should be taking care of somebody. I should be doing something. I should be saving someone, right? We're going to be struggling with that, right? Remember that codependents struggle with a sense of identity. What we're trying to do on the road to recovery is to recover our sense of identity so that we're not seeking outside of ourselves for this sense of identity. Because unfortunately, givers line up with takers. And when you're below the veil, a giver will line up with the taker every time. Now, once you're above the veil, and what I say above the veil is once you're living above the veil of consciousness, you're not living through subconscious programming anymore. You're not living out the narrative of the inner child, please love me, mommy, please love me, groveling, after lovers and friends and coworkers and bosses and lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Once you're not doing that anymore, first of all, you can't do that anymore until you recognize you're doing it, right? Lots of people don't even understand they're doing it, right? That was my reality. I didn't even know I was doing it, right? Once I realized I was doing it, that I was acting this way, that I was seeking validation, that I was seeking approval, that I was giving my power over to other people. Please love me. Please give me worth. Please give me, let me know that I'm okay because I don't feel enough, because I was struggling with abandonment trauma, right? Once I could see the dynamic play out, then it was like I had something tangible, and with my hands, I could work it. It became clay. Now I knew to stop doing things and expecting someone to take care of me because I wanted to take care of them. Stop trying to rescue people because you're looking for a sense of worthiness in the rescuing of others. Just feel worthy because you are, right? It literally was a reprogramming of the subconscious mind. It really was me wrapping my mind around my identity and wrapping my mind around my behaviors, becoming self-aware and becoming self-accountable, and yes, humble, right? Because you can't fix yourself unless you identify there's something wrong, right? And so in the case of narcissism, narcissists don't look at themselves. If you suggest that a narcissist is wrong, they tell you that you're the one who's crazy. There's nothing wrong with a narcissist. No one has to change but you, the other person. You know, if you're a somewhat healthy person, right, and you're on the road to recovery, and you're able to identify, wow, this is the way I am, that's something to be celebrated, right? So in this time, this trying time, when the world is going through so much, and my heart goes out to anyone who's struggling with this coronavirus, any family member who has succumbed to this disease, I am so sorry. But this video is about acknowledging that just because we're under this, you know, global pandemic doesn't mean that our issues with codependency, going no contact, and narcissistic abuse go away. And in some cases, they might even be amplified. So be aware that if you have gone no contact with someone with narcissism or who is high on the narcissistic spectrum, and you have deemed someone who is toxic, someone who hurts you, someone who is not good for your mental health, right? Do not be surprised if during this time, if they are struggling with gaining narcissistic supply outside of you and your relationship. Do not be surprised if they begin to hoover you. Do not be surprised if your phone rings. Do not be surprised if they start talking to your friends, right? Wanting to find out what's up with you because they need a source of narcissistic supply. And don't be surprised, dear one, and don't beat yourself up if because you are under so much stress, you know, a narcissist reaches out and wants to hit you up on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you know, or a text message. Don't be surprised if you don't find yourself having butterflies. Don't be surprised if there is some temptation along with answering that text because it might happen. We are under extenuating circumstances of feeling powerless, and distractions, you know, play into the pain versus pleasure principle in our brain, where I have all this stuff going on around me that is really painful, and oh, maybe I'll just talk to him, or maybe I'll just talk to her once or twice. And it's almost like a hit, right? We get this hit and our brains feel like, ooh, that felt awesome. It's like a drug hit, right? But we want to stay out of that rabbit hole. We want to honor how far we've come on the road to recovery. And we don't need to be cruel or to harass anyone. We just need to stand in our truth. And the ultimate truth is that you are enough, and that truth will set you free. You are enough, you were born enough, and you will always be enough. And you don't have to play games with anybody. You know, and you don't have to grovel, and you don't have to rescue, and you don't have to be needed, and you don't have to put up with nonsense and be abused and tolerate verbal abuse and psychological abuse and projection, domestic abuse. You don't have to put up with any of it just to feel enough, because dear one, that's already been qualified. You are enough. You are enough. So we're going to hang in there. We're going to come through the other side of this. Right? We're going to make it. Human beings are very resilient. Think about all the things in your life that you've gone through, right? Make a list of all the things that you have gone through and that you have survived, right? And know that we will get through to the other side. And please do not risk your emotional sobriety. Do not risk how far you've come on the road to recovery by giving into narcissists hoovering at this time, because the hoovering that's going to be done during this time period, it's not going to be about you, dear one. It's only going to be about them. It's only going to be about them securing some form of narcissistic supply. And I hope that that's not you. I hope that's done now and forever. And I hope you know that you are enough. Namaste, everybody. Until next time. Bye for now. Be safe.
Darkness takes the light. Stars don't shine so bright, feelings burning fire, fall through the night, dream.